matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
Winning the next general election?
I'd probably reform, I think.
A new poll shows nearly two-thirds of Tory party members support doing a deal with Reform at the next election, with polls indicating that Reform and the Conservatives would have a victory if combined. It's time to unite the right. Plus,
an unbiased mediator. That is what a judge should be.
Henrik takes centre stage at the Conservative Party conference today as he promises to crack down on political judges, abolish the Sentencing Council, and a leaked recording shows him saying he never saw another white face in a Birmingham suburb. We will look at the big news from the Tory Party conference today, also tonight. Several pro-Palestinian protests are taking place at universities today, really appallingly, because today is the second anniversary of the evil 7th of October massacre. The Prime Minister has rightly called the protests anti-British, and the demonstrations are being condemned. Is it time these protests were restricted, or are they simply exercising a right, albeit a distasteful one, to protest? And
I don't really talk like Ben Whishaw. No, I am from Peru. I'm Paddington Bear from Peru.
producers of the Paddington Bear films are taking legal action against Spitting Image after the famous bear was turned into a potty-mouthed, drug-addled caricature. Perhaps the grisly Paddington parody was too much for them to bear. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the political commentator Matthew Stadlin. As always, I want to know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Jacob, thank you very much. The top stories. Pro-Palestine protesters are at King's Cross Station, currently demonstrating on the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks in Israel. It comes after the Prime Minister branded such protests un-British. Writing in The Times, he added the UK remains committed to peace with a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. Meanwhile, around 100 people turned out for a protest at Sheffield University today in defiance of Sir Keir Starmer and university leaders who urged students to think carefully about their actions. Organisers of the Sheffield event, one of a number planned across the UK today, laughed when asked about Sir Keir's comments that the timing of the protests was un-British. The protesters gathered outside the Student Union building and shouted chants including, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Meanwhile, a memorial is currently taking place in Tel Aviv to mark the second anniversary of the terror attack in Israel. Thousands have gathered for the bereaved families' memorial ceremony this evening. Families of those still missing say they'll keep fighting until every hostage is returned. That's as Israel's military campaign in Gaza continues. More than 67,000 have been killed, with most homes damaged or destroyed. Indirect peace talks between Israel and Hamas have resumed in Egypt as hopes rise for a breakthrough in the Gaza war. Egypt's foreign minister says the talks are centred on creating a security plan for Israel's full withdrawal from Gaza. Negotiators are also seeking to guarantee unrestricted UN aid access to the territory. Cairo says the ultimate goal is to unite the West Bank and Gaza and move closer to a lasting two-state solution. Robert Jenrick caused a stir at the Tory party conference today, arriving on stage with a black box with a judge's wig inside. The Shadow Justice Secretary used the prop to call for a crackdown on what he calls activist judges, saying those linked to open borders charities are like referees who support the opposition. Robert Jenrick says he won't shy away from his comments about not seeing another white face during a visit to Birmingham's Handsworth area. He insists his remarks were about integration, not race, linking poor integration to last week's terror attack in Manchester. Kemi Badenoch defended him, saying there's nothing wrong with making observations, but Labour called his comments a red line. Former Tory Mayor Andy Street said Jenrick was wrong about Handsworth, which he described as a very integrated place. It comes after The Guardian published a leaked recording of Jenrick's remarks from a Conservative dinner in March. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch sat down with our political editor Christopher Hope. Ms Badenoch warns that high immigration levels damage communities.
Small boats were not caused by Tory policies. They're small boats in France. They're in Italy. There is a problem with global mass migration. We tried lots of things to fix it. They didn't work. People saw that we ended up, the courts, stopping us from doing that. That's why we're leaving the ECHR, because we're tired of people using the courts to frustrate the democratic will. But you will remember that before small votes, it was channel migrants coming through the tunnel. We fixed that. We stopped that, so we can do it again.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, it's back to Jacob.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. On the penultimate day of the Conservative Party conference, new polling reveals 2/3 of Tory party members support an electoral pact with reform. Our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, went and spoke to delegates at the conference to ask what they think of a right-wing merger.
Yes. We're having too many defections now.
I hope that there are back channels where people talk to each other, because politically and ideologically there's that much between the Conservatives and Reform.
I believe so. I think immigration affects everyone. I think this is where we can learn from one another.
I don't think so, no.
It's wafer thin, the difference between Reform and the Conservatives.
Absolutely, I think it's inevitable.
No, I don't think we need an electoral pact.
At this point, absolutely not.
No idea. How's that?
Well, it's reassuring that most people seem to agree with me, because I've been saying this for a long time, and the party conference season has made one thing very clear, that the Conservatives and Reform are united in common goals: to get immigration down, to cut taxes, to strengthen the economy, to leave the ECHR, to abandon the madness of net zero, to reinstate parliamentary sovereignty, and above all, to defeat the socialist Labour government. Working together, we could tear up the EU surrender deal that Starmer's done and hasn't had any effect on steel, rebuild the fishing fleet, we could set our own food standards, we could break free from the EU's bonkers carbon rules that leave us cold and poor, we could take back control of our borders and stop the boats. A new path for Britain, led by United Right, would mean cutting taxes and unleashing the full power of British enterprise. We could transform our welfare system, helping millions to return to work while cutting excessive welfare expenditure. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, yesterday made it very clear that this is the Conservative Party's ambition. And it's also reforms. Both the Tories and Reform want to leave the ECHR.
We must leave the ECHR and repeal the Human Rights Act.
We will leave the ECHR.
Leaving the ECHR will bring obstacles and legal challenges from the blob, only possible to overcome by united movement, which is why working together is so important. Yesterday, a poll by JL Partners put Reform on 31%, the Conservatives on 19%, a combined 50% of the vote, trouncing Labour's 21%. Uniting the right would provide not only a majority at the next election, but a proper mandate. Sir Keir Starmer has a majority in the House of Commons, but no mandate. The last election, Labour received just 33% of the vote. As we operate under a first-past-the-post system, it is crucial that different wings of politics unite. Otherwise, votes split, which allows the opposition to get in. If such a pact were formed, it would prove disastrous for the leftists, erasing their majority and opening the door to a small C Conservative movement, one that would govern with the kind of assertiveness and principles seen in Donald Trump's administration. As ever, as always, let me know what you think. Mailmog@gbnews.com. Well, I'm joined now by Reform's London Assembly Group leader, Alex Wilson. Alex, thank you for coming in. I was mentioning this to Nigel just before the programme began, and he has agreed publicly with a lot of what Robert Jenrick said in his speech. We're very close politically.
Well, yes, we do agree with a lot of what Robert Jenrick has said in this particular speech, although not at the time when he was first elected in the by-election in Newark, those many years ago when he very much positioned himself as more of a centrist. So I think a lot of what he's saying now is great, but I just don't think it's sincere. And, of course, Robert Jenrick isn't the Conservative Party leader. The Conservatives had the opportunity to elect Robert as the leader, and they chose not to. And what's happened over the last year, the vacuum that there has been in policy from the Conservatives, that's what's created this opportunity for Reform to do what we're doing. And people believe us now more than they believe you, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, but if you add up the votes, now, of course there'd be some slippage. It's really important that whoever governs has both a majority and a mandate, because the state of the country now is bad enough. In 2028-29, it's going to be really considerably worse. Everything is going wrong at the moment. To change it needs a government that is able to get things through Parliament with confidence. On 31% of the vote, Reform won't be able to do that. With the Conservatives, it would be able to.
Well, we're on 31% roughly, averaging now, but there's still 4 years to go, 3.5 years to go, and we are building, we are working hard, we are fighting those local elections, those council by-elections. We've gained a net gain of 80 seats in council by-elections since the general election, all but 2 of which have come since Kemi was elected as Conservative leader. The Conservatives have vacated the field, and that's what's given us this opportunity. But you can't just kind of play Lego and add the blocks together. I was at a branch meeting last night as I go around, often in London, but also elsewhere, Essex, Kent. Tonight I've been invited to go to Hampshire as well. And the branch meeting I was at last night, Brentwood and Ongar, where just last week Reform gained a spectacular victory in a by-election from the Conservatives. If I'd have gone into that room...
I was supporting the other candidate. I did a photograph with him when I was down there recently.
But if I'd have gone into that room and said, you know what, guys, what we need to do is do a deal with the Conservatives, 2/3 of those members would have got up and walked straight out.
That wasn't my experience at the Reform Party conference. That the people I met there... Now, some of them were very angry with the Conservatives, but a lot of them just saw that the bigger picture, that we agree on leaving the ECHR, getting rid of net zero, governing ourselves, cutting taxes, taking control of the welfare budget. On 31% of the vote, you won't be able to do this.
I think a lot of people at our conference would have been delighted to have seen you there, because I think deep down they were hoping you'd be about to be unveiled on the stage as the latest defector, because we'd be very, very pleased to have you. We do agree with you personally on a lot of things, and I know you've been a stalwart, fighting against net zero and the ECHR, those issues, but the problem is your party hasn't, and what's left of your parliamentary party hasn't done that, didn't do it in office, hasn't been doing it up till now in opposition. It's a question of sincerity. Nigel's been saying these things for decades. That's why people are believing him and not believing Kemi.
And indeed, as have I, and as have a lot of Tory members. I think at our membership level, there is very little difference between Reform members and Tory members. They seem to be very similar in their outlook. What Kemi's been saying, and you make a fair point, she's taken time to develop her policies, but what she's been saying over the past few days is really very much in line with the Reform's agenda. So there is a greater unity coming about even at the parliamentary level.
Perhaps, but I think it's very much playing catch-up. As I say, Nigel's been saying these things for years, for decades. It's very much in his DNA. I don't think the same can be said of the Conservative Parliamentary Party. And that's it. You've got a parliamentary party of, 120 MPs, and probably at least half of those would be very happy in the Liberal Democrats.
Well, that may or may not be true, but if you look at electoral arithmetic, do you think that Conservative and Reform voters in by-elections should vote tactically?
Well, I think Conservative voters should vote tactically, and they should do that by voting Reform.
OK, but do you think Reform voters should do the same, where the Conservatives have a better chance of winning?
Well, there aren't that many places at the moment. No, look, I know polls can go down as well as up, and I'm very happy with the position we're in right now. The biggest challenge and the biggest potential The enemy that we have is complacency, is hubris, and nobody in Reform is taking anything for granted. But we've worked very, very hard to get to where we're at, the stuff that Nigel's doing nationally, but crucially, the branch network that we've been building since the general election. That's the real game changer. That's why we had more candidates standing in the council elections in May than any other party. That's why we had more active campaigns.
One gloomy thing I'll say to you is that as soon as you say we mustn't be complacent, it means you're already complacent. It's a terrible self-fulfilling prophecy. But thank you very much, Alex, for joining me. Coming up in just a moment.
An unbiased mediator. That is what a judge should be.
Well, I thought he was a Tory. He turns out to be a Whig. Robert Jenrick takes centre stage at the Conservative Party conference today as he promises to crack down on political judges. We'll look at all the big news from the Tory conference later.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I was very lucky enough to be at the station today to welcome it in, be part of the group welcoming it into the station it's about 1:15 this morning. So I'm back down in London again now. It's been a busy old day. But yeah, I've been on that train previously on the main line. We took it out for a test run a couple of weeks ago, and we were in those wagons under moonlight. Serves as this little engine, pulled us along a branch line. And under test, but this incredible replica train, a complete train, genuinely is a direct link with the past and lets us understand a little bit what it was like to have technology like this at the time, and then showcase this phenomenal little machine and this train, these vehicles, how we can solve problems today, actually, and how far we've come, and shows the heritage of Britain's genuinely incredible railway network.
It is a pretty little train, actually, isn't it? And if you say that it can help you solve problems today, in what way? I mean, this compared with that machine it is next to, it's incredibly primitive. So what can we learn from this little thing?
Well, I think that the same problems extend today as today, right? That we need to move people and things from A to B. And what's so lovely about seeing a machine like this, locomotion number one replica, of course, is that it genuinely shows us how someone thought, I've got a problem. How do I move coal and people from up there to over there? And actually the answer was railways. And so often today, the most efficient way of moving people around still is railways.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg. Well, Robert Jenrick dominated the Conservative Party conference today, pledging to abolish political judges blocking deportations.
Don't worry. I'm not about to do a Michael Fabricant tribute act. An unbiased mediator. That is what a judge should be. Today I've uncovered dozens of judges with links to Open Borders charities who take to social media to broadcast their Open Borders views, who spent their whole careers fighting to keep illegal migrants in this country.
The Shadow Justice Secretary has also caused a stir after leaked audio footage showed him saying on a visit to a Birmingham suburb that he didn't see another white face, criticising lack of integration. Meanwhile, the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, took a decidedly unconservative tone when he announced this.
In our hotspot areas, we will allow routine stop and search without suspicion. Anyone can be searched. We will change the law to do this, and we will triple the use of stop and search. Lives will be saved, and knives will be taken off our streets. We have the courage to do that. Labour does not.
Well, stop and search without suspicion is a police state, an outrageous suggestion. And the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, was reported at a Tory fringe event, saying he may have reflected Rachel Reeves and raised income tax to tackle the black hole. So there we go. An ideologically mixed day at the conference, but I'm joined now from the conference itself by our Thursday regular, part of the most pugnacious panel normally, Michael Crick. Michael, first of all, what's the mood like amongst the delegates and the attenders of the conference?
Well, there are a lot fewer attenders at this year's conference than there were last year when you were here. Maybe it's because you're not here that they decided not to come themselves. But no, seriously, I think, you know, that does reflect a much more downbeat mood within the party. I mean, last year, when there was a leadership election going on, of course, there was quite an excited, upbeat mood, even though the party had suffered a terrible election defeat in July of last year, because people were debating, you know, the merits of the different candidates and different philosophies and different ways the party might go. And of course, since then, the polls have become much worse for the Conservatives in the last year. This conference, just like the Labour conference last week, has been dominated by the whole question of Reform UK and Nigel Farage and what the party does to counter that, or should the party be considering pacts with Reform and Farage and so on, of the kind that you yourself advocate. So it's a rather strange Conservative conference this year. The one relief is that there are no protesters outside, which was always a pretty unpleasant gauntlet that one had to go through coming into the conference area.
And Robert Jenrick's had a good day today. His speech very well received. The hall was packed, which it hasn't been for everybody, and he's making an impact in the news.
He is, and I must say I don't like some of the things that he's been saying. I mean, political judges, that's dangerous territory. Certainly the idea of allowing ministers to decide who becomes judges and who doesn't. I mean, you know, if there are judges who are expressing support for political campaigns, that's wrong, and they should be told to stop it, in the same way as when I was a broadcaster with ITN and the BBC, we weren't allowed to express our support for such things. But, I mean, this idea that the judiciary they're all a bunch of left-wingers is absurd, really. I mean, Stephen Eyre, the judge who initially was the initial judge in the Epping case a few weeks ago, you know, was a Conservative candidate in a by-election 20 years ago in Birmingham. Jonathan Sumption is a former, you know, advisor to Keith Joseph. He was a Supreme Court judge. So not all judges are people of the left by any means.
No, but the judge who overruled on the Epping case had been the chairman of the Fabian Society. So that was quite political. It does seem to me that judges are more political than they were, and that this is a problem because law has been politicised by the Human Rights Act and things like that.
I'm not so sure that's true. I think if you did a proper study of judges and their politics and their past politics, I think you'd find a lot of them have been Conservatives in the past. I mean, Ian Burnett, the Lord Chief Justice, I remember he was president of the Conservative Association at Oxford when I was there. Now, what matters is whether they allow their politics to intrude while they are judges. Now, in the case of Sir David Bean, who overturned Stephen Eyre's judgment, and funnily enough, both of them are friends of mine, he was a chairman of the Fabian Society and a Labour candidate many years ago, but I think he's given all that up, of course, because he is in such a senior position, and that is the right thing to do. Judges should not be involved in any way in anything that can be deemed to be political, and if they are, then that should be stopped.
But wouldn't it actually have been better if Bean had recused himself, because a former chairman of the Fabians ruling in favour of the government where the Prime Minister is a known Fabian does make people suspicious?
Well, from memory, he was chairman of the Fabian Society a very long time ago. I mean, I think it was the sort of late 80s.
But immediately before Robin Cook. I mean, it's a very prestigious role.
It is, but I think that David Bean is a highly intelligent man, and I don't think he lets his politics intrude into his judgment. In the same way, I don't think Stephen Eyre did in the previous round of that particular case, because most judges, nearly all judges, I think, have realised that the role that they're in. And if there are some judges, as Robert Jenrick says, who are sponsoring certain charities, they certainly should be told to stop it.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. Hope to see you back here next week. And let me now go to my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the political commentator, Matthew Stadlen. Matthew, good day for Robin Jenrick. He's getting things across. The British people like what he's saying.
I think it's a bad day for Robert Jenrick and a bad day for our country, and I think the attack on the judiciary is actually quite sinister. And the reason I think that is because, unless I've got my facts wrong, there are thousands of judges, salaried judges, in England and Wales. Robert Jenrick seems to have been able to identify about 30 judges who have past links to certain immigration charities. I think he may have found 11 judges that he alleges may have been on social media while they are judges, saying perhaps certain things that are political. Let's be absolutely clear, as I thought Michael was, you cannot be political when you are a judge. The idea that Robert Jenrick is sowing in the minds of the population, and if you're right that this message is getting across and is getting through, it's very bad news, because the idea he's trying to promote is that somehow our judiciary are awash with bias, and that undermines public confidence in the rule of law.
But Baroness Hale, with her disgraceful judgment, was completely political. You know, you had a political president of the Supreme Court, and that undermined confidence enormously. And the judges have become more likely to overturn ministerial decisions, replacing their judgment for ministers. This is partly the fault of the Human Rights Act. It's partly the fault of having something that calls itself a Supreme Court.
Hang on, you're talking about the prorogation of Parliament, aren't you? Hang on. The fact that you disagreed with the judgment, or you didn't like it, or it was politically not in your favour, does not mean that she acted politically.
Since she left her role, she voted against Rishi Sunak's immigration reforms every single time. She was anti-conservative, and she was anti-conservative in that
Jacob,
judgment.
we've got to make a distinction. Hang on, we've got to make an important distinction. What past do judges have? How do they behave? What do they say in public when they are actually judges? And what they say afterwards? Now, my view is, and there is a convention, and it's the convention for a reason. My father was a High Court judge, and my father was very, very careful not to get involved in British politics.
But she broke that.
After, and I think it is a mistake when judges do that. I was interviewing Lord Sumption only the other day on stage in Salisbury. He has got involved, although not in party politics, as far as I know, with some quite contentious issues. And if he were here today, I would be challenging him on that.
All right, Gavin, let me bring you in. It seems to me that actually it's very important that judges are independent and that they are not willy-nilly removed. And actually, since the Glorious Revolution, judges have been appointed on good behaviour rather than at His Majesty's pleasure. And that has been a great protection of the independence of the judiciary.
Well, I'm not sure how independent our judges are. For instance, the reason, of course, that they're involved with charities that are involved with immigration is because, of course, when they were KCs, they were able to be helpful, then they received money. Right, that was it. So it wasn't so much political, it was actually receiving money because they end up being paid, because the charities push the migrants their way, they represent them, they get paid. So they have an ongoing financial link with these charities because it's the migrants that go to the charities in the first place. And then we come to the second issue. So there's a commercial aspect to the way that I know this comes as a surprise to you, Matthew, but actually people make money out of the law, which is the reason most people go into it.
You're not suggesting any judges today are making money.
No, but they did in the past, and therefore they look upon these people in that manner. And actually, the only way you become an image, the only way you can become an immigrant judge in this country is if you've had a long history of representing the very people who actually we're trying to keep out. It's true. I don't know why you argue. Just look up their CV, then you'll discover
You're getting cross because you're on weak ground with the facts.
I'm not on weak grounds. It's all commercial.
He's on pretty good ground. If we got rid of the Human Rights Act, it would all be much simpler, which is Tory party policy. Anyway, thank you both to Michael Crick and to my panel. In a moment, several pro-Palestine protests taking place at universities today, despite today being the second anniversary of the most evil act on the 7th of October. It is time these protests were restricted, or are they simply exercising a right to an albeit distasteful, legitimate freedom?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow across southern parts of Europe, there's a lot of fine weather around. A few spots of rain here and there, a couple of showers starting to push their way into parts of Portugal, maybe around some coastal parts of Spain. Otherwise, a generally fine picture here. Also generally dry across much of Italy as well. Further east into parts of Greece, also around Croatia, a few showery bursts, but a lot of that clearing away. So actually, as we go through the end of the week into the weekend, it's looking dry for many of us and warm in the sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, the sunshine will return for some. Still fairly cloudy across the south though, and plenty of showers moving their way in across Scotland. Back to this evening, and we can expect some spells of rain initially across northern parts of England and Wales. Then eventually the system will drift its way southwards, bringing in more cloud, also some drizzly outbreaks across central and southern parts of the UK. To the north of this though, mostly dry, plenty of clear skies, which means it is going to turn chilly. A chance we could see some isolated frost, possibly even some mist and fog during the early hours of the morning. A different story across Scotland though, more cloud here and plenty of showers moving through. So a fairly chilly start across northern areas, but slightly milder under the cloud in the south. And it is going to be quite a grey and gloomy start to the day. There will be some drizzle in places, mostly across any hilly areas. And as we head our way further north, it will become drier. Plenty of bright and clear spells to start the day, though it is going to feel chilly. And across Scotland, once again, it is going to be another wet start. Plenty of showers continuing to push their way in from the west, turning quite breezy here at times too. And these showers often merging together to bring quite persistent outbreaks of rain. And it's likely these will linger through much of the day. But any cloud and drizzle will eventually shift its way southward, so it should turn drier and brighter here, but the best of the brightness is going to be across Wales, central parts of England, also Northern Ireland should see plenty of sunny spells. Those showers are set to continue across Scotland though. Temperatures will be fairly similar to what we saw this afternoon, so highs of 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Heading into Thursday and across the south, it will be a much brighter start to the day. It's going to be chilly though, some mist and fog in places. Many areas should see a mostly dry day, though we have once again got some showers just starting to move into western parts of Scotland, also parts of Northern Ireland, so it could be a little damp here at times. For the rest of the week and into the weekend, high pressure dominating, so mostly dry, though it's often going to be cloudy. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Several pro-Palestine protests are taking place on university campuses across the United Kingdom today. The anniversary marking 2 years since the 7th of October massacre, when Hamas gunmen brutally murdered more than 1,000 Israelis and took hundreds hostage. The Prime Minister has labelled the demonstrations anti-British and condemned attacks against the Jewish community. Is it time to restrict these hate demonstrations, or are these people simply exercising a fundamental, if in this instance deeply distasteful, right to protest? Well, I'm now joined by political commentator Martin Abrams. Martin, first of all, thank you for coming on, because very few people have been willing to defend the protests today. And it does seem to me that the right to protest is important, but that people should exercise their judgment, and that doing it today is just deeply distasteful.
Well, good evening, Jacob. And I'd like to thank you, Jacob, and GBNews for giving me the space as a Jewish person to come on and speak to you tonight. It is really important that the voices of Jewish people from across the Jewish community are heard at the moment, as we are not a homogenous group that all think the same way, and to assume so I would argue, to be anti-Semitic. But tonight, Jacob, we and many of us have paused to mourn and to share in the pain of the family and friends of those murdered and taken hostage 2 years ago in the Hamas-led attacks, some of whom have still not returned home. But Jacob, let's not forget, today also marks the beginning of the Israeli genocide in Gaza. We've seen just horrific violence played out across our social media feeds day after day after day after day. And it really is, you know, a important moment tonight, because we need this genocide to stop. We need this genocide to end. And that's the message I would like to put out tonight, that you know, Jewish people are marking tonight, but Jewish people are also appalled by what is happening in Israel.
And it's important to understand that not every Jewish person supports the Prime Minister of Israel. I'm glad you've had the opportunity to say that. But would you have marched at the weekend after the terrible murder that took place in Manchester last week?
Well, Jacob, so I'm from Manchester originally, and that synagogue was my late grandma's synagogue, so that was attacked. It was an absolutely appalling attack, and you know, we mourn the deaths of Adrian Dolby and Melvin Kravitz, and you know, want to send the love to our families and friends and congregation. But Jacob, it is really dangerous to link the anti-genocide protests or the pro-Palestine protests with an abhorrent anti-Semitic terrorist attack. That is a really dangerous place to go, because that is exactly what that anti-Semitic terrorist clearly did. He basically associated that synagogue, that Jewish community, many of whom have absolutely nothing to do with Israel, have absolutely nothing to do with the Israeli government or Benjamin Netanyahu, and that despicable terrorist basically associated all those Jewish people in there and went and attacked the synagogue. So to do basically exactly the same and then link the pro-Palestine anti-genocide protests with being anti-Semitic is really, really dangerous in my view.
But a lot of those protests are anti-Semitic, aren't they? And they chant anti-Semitic slogans.
Jacob, what mainstream media fail to recognise and never mention, and that's why I think it's really important that I am on speaking to you tonight, is that within those demonstrations, there is a huge Jewish bloc and an ever-increasing Jewish bloc of Jewish people that are out week after week marching against the genocide, saying loud and clear, not in our name.
Right.
We are not all a homogenous bloc. And those Jewish people would not be going on that march if it was a hateful anti-Semitic march. I have been on dozens of those marches, Jacob, and I can tell you for a fact, these are not hate marches. There are hundreds of thousands of people marching. Obviously, within those hundreds of thousands of people, there is going to be a small element that are anti-Semitic. That's because anti-Semitism exists in our society, Jacob.
Martin, thank you very much for joining me. And let me now go to my panel, Kelvin McKenzie and Matthew Stadlen. Kelvin, I'm not sure I agree with what Martin was saying, that there seems to be an upsurge in anti-Semitism in this country, which is fuelled by these marches, and that some people at universities and indeed at King's Cross Station were protesting today, of all days, can only really be anti-Semitic.
Right. Well, the most interesting piece I've read on this is a piece by Matthew Said in the Sunday Times, in which what he said in there was, and he is a liberal by any stretch of the imagination, is he went to the Trafalgar Square Palestine Action demonstration, and he said it was clear there was only one thing that was unifying everybody there. He spoke to 24 people. 2 people weren't like this. The rest of them were like this. Was a deep and abiding hatred of Jews, which they were prepared to express. When I read that, I haven't been on that march. I took it that was the beating heart of Palestine Action. And actually, it must be a very, very dangerous moment to be wandering around, going to school, going to synagogues, or wearing any kind of outward sign that you are Jewish. But strangely, I am against banning those marches. I just wonder whether we just have to put up with hatred. I know it's terrible, but I just fear that banning the march will not be helpful.
I'm quite clear on this. As a half-Jewish person, my father was Jewish, my grandparents were Jewish refugees from Austria. My wife's just visited the flat where my great-great-uncle was murdered by the Gestapo in Vienna. We have to protect freedom of speech. Otherwise, what are we anymore? And we had to allow that march, that Tommy Robinson march, to go ahead. We have to allow marches to go ahead where they are peaceful. And if the law is broken on those marches, the law needs to clamp down very severely indeed, in my view. Would I go near any of these marches, either the Tommy Robinson march or indeed these pro-Palestine marches? No, I wouldn't. I do suspect that there were very, very many people on the pro-Palestine marches who don't have an anti-Semitic bone in their body. And the fact that Matthew Said spoke to 24 people, I mean, we know that tens and tens of thousands of people have been on these marches. I wouldn't have gone to those marches because I had an instinct that there would, of course, be some anti-Semitism on there. And I think we've seen that there has been some anti-Semitism on there. I thought Mark spoke very well. He's taken a different view. He goes on these marches, it seems. But Jews do not all speak with one voice. And it is anti-Semitic to conflate people's ethnicity with their ethical views, whether they're Jews, Muslims, whatever they happen to be. We have to treat people as individuals.
Yes. The one thing I'd say is that I agree with you that people should be free to march and to say what they want. But because they're free to doesn't mean that they have to.
Of course not, and I think it was the wrong thing to do. Now, I think it was the wrong thing to do, not because I want to conflate what's going on in Israel, what the Israeli government and military are doing in Gaza with Jews in Britain, because it's very important that there is an absolute firewall between those two things. Just because you are a British Jew does not mean that you support what the Israeli government is doing. Some will, but many won't. The reason I think it was insensitive is because voices within the Jewish community have been quite clear, I think, that these marches they find intimidating. And I do think that on the anniversary of October the 7th, which was the most appalling massacre of Jews and others in Israel, just in my view, choose to take a day off. It doesn't mean the state should ban it, but choose to take a day off.
I think we broadly agree.
Yeah, I know. By the way, I'd rather take Matthew Said's on-the-ground view of what was being said to him. And this was being said to him that the hatred of Jews, you could literally cut it You know,
Right.
so I'm afraid...
That's 20 people, though.
Yeah, well,
Right.
how many people do you have to speak
Right,
to?
I
He's a
think
journalist. He
I
can't
think-
get round everybody.
let's-
It's a ridiculous argument.
let's pause.
Tens of thousands,
Let's pause.
Kelvin.
What do you
Let's pause for a
think
moment.
they're like?
Let's pause for a
What
moment.
do you
on
really
this.
think they're like,
Hold on.
those
Let-
people?
Let's
I know
just
what they're
pause for a
like.
moment on this very sad anniversary, because I think we have to remember that a real horror took place 2 years ago. So thank you to Martin and my panel. I will be back shortly.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Po-faced producers of the Paddington Bear films are clawing back at Spitting Image, taking legal action after the beloved bear was turned into a potty-mouthed, drug-addled caricature.
And I don't really talk like Ben Whishaw. No, I am from Peru. I'm Paddington Bear from Peru. I also had a starring role in the Netflix series Narcos as Pablo Escobar.
It seems this grisly parody was just too much to bear, but it is another sign of an increasingly puritanical society. Well, let me go to my panel, Kelvin Mackenzie, Matthew Stadling. This is just po-faced nonsense, isn't it?
Absolute nonsense. Canal Plus should hang their heads in shame. They're in the media themselves. They've made great movies about very uncomfortable things. This was a piece of fun. Spitting Image has been a satirical success come 40 or 50 years. Leave it alone. Get real.
But Spitting Image must be delighted because it's given them lots of publicity.
I haven't quite worked out which side of this argument you guys are on. Are you in favour of this lampooning? Or
oh, yeah, of course I am.
You are
in
favour, are you?
Yes.
I think Paddington Bear, let's leave the poor chap alone.
Oh, come on.
Of course. No, first of all...
But the first Spitting Image even lampooned Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mother.
Yeah, but not Paddington Bear.
But of course, surely Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mother is more important than Paddington Bear.
But no, Paddington Bear is an icon for children.
And children
are not watching
videos, but they can stumble on YouTube or they can stumble on their parents watching Spitting Image.
Do you know what?
And I think the idea of Paddington Bear, I hope not too many children are watching this particular show after what I'm about to say, but the idea of Paddington Bear being a sort of coke-snorting lunatic. Come on.
Come on, man. One minute you're in favour of free speech of half of Palestine walking down Oxford Street, and the next minute you're saying a bit of fun should be banned.
There's an important distinction to be... I'm not saying they should be suing him. I'm saying that exercise your editorial judgment and leave Paddington alone.
This is such a shame. I thought you were the exception to the rule that the left are humourless, and now you're showing yourself you're as humourless as the rest of the left.
I'm surprised that as a proud Brit, you can't even allow Paddington.
Oh, no. The Brits have always teased everybody. Anyway, new figures show London could be on its way to becoming a childless city after senior teachers warn pupil numbers are plunging as families leave the capital. Exorbitant living costs and falling birth rates are finding that people are moving out. So, should Britain's dwindling birth rates be a cause for concern? Well, Kelvin, you worried about this?
Well, it's part of... I hate to say it on a Robert Kenrick Day, but it's part of white flight. It's one of the reasons. Everybody is moving either out to Essex or Surrey or in the home counties, or even actually moving up to Manchester, where homes are cheaper. I think you'll probably discover that there'll be less people in London, but actually the colour of London will dramatically change.
Are you seriously suggesting that white people can less afford to live in London than people of colour?
No, they want to get out. They, not unreasonably, right, birds of a feather, I know this will come as a surprise to you, actually prefer to stick together. And actually you will discover that there will be a lot of Asians in central London or a lot of Africans in central London and outside. Well, this has been going on for 30 or 40 years, Matthew. It's all right for you living in Notting Hill. The rest of us have to live in Weybridge.
This caricature of Notting Hill, it shows that you haven't been to Notting Hill for the last 30 years. Notting Hill is about as multi-ethnic a place as you... I mean,
not in the area you live.
What do you mean?
Not in the area
My
you
street
live.
is half social housing. We have refugees on our street.
Do you live in social housing,
we
Matthew?
have the descendants of refugees like me. No, I don't live in social housing. We have people from all over the world on our street. Notting Hill is multi-ethnic. I'm delighted to live in London.
Okay.
Is it? So let's just leave skin colour out of it.
No, I'm just saying that's why people are moving out.
The idea that birds of a feather flock together, to suggest on national TV that white people all want to hang out together. Robert Jenrick has just... Robert Jenrick...
That's what happens. You do when you go to your... When you go to do whatever you do. I presume you mainly hang out with your family, and as far as I know, they're white.
Well, you don't know, because you haven't asked me. Robert Jenrick...
OK, well, I'm asking you, are they white or not?
Robert Jenrick, who would like to be in the next government, he made the point in these leaked remarks that he went to a place in Birmingham, I think for maybe about an hour and a half, and he decided it wasn't integrated because he didn't see a white face, right? Those remarks, I imagine you might be quite supportive of, which would show you to be a hypocrite. What we want is proper integration. We're not interested in skin colour. We want people to live together and get on with it. And that's what happens in London. Is London a very expensive place to live? Of course it is.
But isn't it partly that the mayor's failing to build any houses, and it's another failure of Sadiq Khan? People have to move out. There's nowhere to live.
Well, there are places to live. There are about 8 or 9 million people who live in London.
Yeah, but it's becoming no new housing. Absolute failure of Sadiq Khan.
I think the point of this article that we're basing this conversation around is that families are moving out because they want more space or because it's very expensive, which it is. I've got a young family myself, 2 children and 2 Cocker Spaniels. Tell me about it. But perhaps younger couples are moving into those places because they can afford to have less space, and it's less expensive if you don't have children. Does it matter that we don't have enough children? Yes, particularly if you care about immigration, because otherwise you'll have more immigrants to fill up.
You should all have as many children as I've got. Anyway, today is the 7th of October, and the Catholic Church celebrates the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, also known as Our Lady of Victories. The feast day commemorates the tremendously important 1571 Battle of Lepanto, when a fleet of Catholic powers defeated the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman navy, securing Europe from invasion. Pope Pius V attributed the victory to the prayers of the Rosary, which had been said across Europe in preparation for the battle. The feast is another example of the Church's historic devotion to the Virgin Mary in times of danger. And as we commemorate the terrible massacres 2 years ago, I think it is a good day on which to say the Rosary for the souls of those who were murdered. Anyway, that's all from me. Next, Patrick Christie's, what have you got on your programme this evening?
Well, loads on, actually. We're going to be talking about biased pro-immigration judges, the Palestine protests, and thankfully it will be a Matthew Stadlen-free zone. Stay tuned.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, the sunshine will return for some. Still fairly cloudy across the south though, and plenty of showers moving their way in across Scotland. Back to this evening, and we can expect some spells of rain initially across northern parts of England and Wales. Then eventually the system will drift its way southwards, bringing in more cloud, also some drizzly outbreaks across central and southern parts of the UK. To the north of this though, mostly dry, plenty of clear skies, which means it is going to turn chilly. A chance we could see some isolated frost, possibly even some mist and fog during the early hours of the morning. A different story across Scotland though, more cloud here and plenty of showers moving through. So a fairly chilly start across northern areas, but slightly milder under the cloud in the south. And it is going to be quite a grey and gloomy start to the day. There will be some drizzle in places, mostly across any hilly areas. And as we head our way further north, it will become drier. Plenty of bright and clear spells to start the day, though it is going to feel chilly. And across Scotland, once again, it is going to be another wet start. Plenty of showers continuing to push their way in from the west, turning quite breezy here at times too. And these showers often merging together to bring quite persistent outbreaks of rain. And it's likely these will linger through much of the day. But any cloud and drizzle will eventually shift its way southward, so it should turn drier and brighter here, but the best of the brightness is going to be across Wales, central parts of England, also Northern Ireland should see plenty of sunny spells. Those showers are set to continue across Scotland though. Temperatures will be fairly similar to what we saw this afternoon, so highs of 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Heading into Thursday and across the south, it will be a much brighter start to the day. It's going to be chilly though, some mist and fog in places. Many areas should see a mostly dry day, though we have once again got some showers just starting to move into western parts of Scotland, also parts of Northern Ireland, so it could be a little damp here at times. For the rest of the week and into the weekend, high pressure dominating, so mostly dry, though it's often going to be cloudy. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225.